Welcome back. I'm here with Heitor Lessa, who is a specialist solution architect
Hello, everyone.
for serverless. And we are live at the London Summit. And we're going to talk a little bit about SAM, especially dive deeper a little bit into SAM CLI.
Of course, let's do it.
So, what do we do?
So first, let's actually recap, in case you're new to all of this.
Yep. What is SAM?
SAM is, this page over here, if I can show it to you, is Serverless Application Model. It's a superset of CloudFormation that allows you to define your serverless application, model it as an infrastructure as code, run it locally to test for fast feedback loop, and it also allows you to do all the normal stuff customers do with serverless. Web applications, Alexa skills, interactive backends, analytics, and so forth.
And when we talk about serverless application, we're talking about applications that most of the time use API gateway, Lambda for the compute, and maybe DynamoDB for a database, right?
That's right. But it's also important that you know that serverless applications ended up using other building blocks as well.
Absolutely.
So
Kinesis.
Exactly. You can use Kinesis for streaming data.
Yep.
Sometimes you may need to work with relational data for instance.
Yeah, and our first serverless service,
Exactly.
Amazon S3.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. So can we show the template? Yeah. So do you want to show us how it looks like, a template?
Sure, absolutely. So this is the GitHub page where SAM lives, and the specification lives there, including the open source code. I'm going to show you first, very quickly, how a SAM template looks like from the documentation page. So if you go to examples folder, there's a bunch of actually examples already there. I'm going to show you one first, which is
the
API backend, right? Which is the most common one to see it. So if you actually see my screen right now, you will see that this is very similar to CloudFormation. The difference between them is, you see that we are using something called AWS, not Lambda function, but serverless function.
Yeah.
So this is done by SAM. SAM will simplify how you write this whole resource in CloudFormation in that sense, and will translate to something that CloudFormation understands.
So it's a superset of CloudFormation, a sort of an abstraction layer on top of the
Absolutely,
of the
and
whole
not
thing.
only that, it actually does some really nice things. Especially if let's say that this is a Lambda function that runs on Node.js 6.10, and this is where my source code is. Now it's a relative path, no longer in S3, as you have to do in a Lambda function. You can specify policies from here, environment variables normally, but this is top-notch. Under the events, you can actually specify you want an API gateway to invoke this Lambda function, and how you want the API gateway to invoke that function. For instance, it has always to be a get, and/resource, and/a REST, like identity or something like this.
Forget method, right? But it could be a post method.
It could be anything, or it could even be any. And then we will translate that any into all of this as well, including proxy. That's right.
So I know you've been working on some magic sauce behind the scene about SAM inits. Do you want to talk a little bit about SAM init? Because this is a really cool feature, in my opinion.
Absolutely. So for those of you also arriving right now, is we made a refreshment to the AWS SAM CLI. It used to be called SAM Local. That gives you local capabilities. But we actually enhanced that with 2 new cool features, in addition to a lot of bug fixes and everything else. So let me show you init first.
Yeah, I want to see that.
So if I already have my SAM CLI already installed, so if I were to create a new app, for instance, let's call this Twitch London, and we go over there, oops. This is what live means, right? So if I do sam-help, you will see that now we have something called init. If I try this and do sam init, you will see that we created just now a boilerplate application in Node.js with everything you possibly need. And as everyone asks us the question, how do I structure my code for Lambda? How do I do unit testing? How do I create my first API gateway with Lambda? All of this is now created for you. Not only that, you can say something like, let's say a Java project or something like this. I'm going to use that Java autocomplete.
You can define the runtime. You can have Python, Java.
Absolutely.
You can have C#. You can have
all of this.
JavaScript and
yeah, exactly. So let's say I'm going to do something like it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And then let's say runtime, let's say Hask. And you see that all of the runtimes you can choose from. Essentially, all of the runtimes you support in Lambda is already supporting SAM init. I can build .NET Core, I can do Java, Python, all of the versions, Node.js, 4.3, 6.10,
cool.
and also the latest one.
That's great. Do you want to show quickly how a boilerplate Lambda function looks like?
Absolutely, yeah. So let's open up this into Visual Studio Code, and you will see here on the left-hand side the applications we just built. Let's say we take a Node.js, for example. What we give to you is a SAM template very similar to what you've seen previously. And we also give you a README file explaining everything you should know as you begin with your serverless application, from packaging, from local deployment, from dependencies, from unit testing, and all these pieces. For now, just to show you how it works, let's actually copy this, install our dependencies there, and then see if that would work for us. So we got there, do an npm install or yarn in that case, and then from here, if it worked, we have our node modules.
That's great.
Perfect. And if I do this
so
now,
then it's easy to package because now we have all the dependencies inside of the repository, right?
Exactly. So
That's
if you ever used SAM local before, this will be the command you will run next. We also give to you this command over here, and if you're new to all this, don't worry. We also explain to you what SAM local start API does behind the scenes and why it works that way. So let's give it a try.
Yeah, let's do it.
So you see that I already have an API running.
So SAM local use containers locally to emulate an API gateway and your Lambda functions, right?
Absolutely. Let's have a look at that in a second. First, let's see if the dependencies work and our code works.
Woohoo!
Works.
I love the hello world.
Okay.
Nice.
And once that's done, we can see that he actually created something called hello. How does this work? If I go to my template.yaml, I will see that in my events that I mentioned to you earlier, we have a path called /hello, and I also have a get in here. So I could say, call this Adrian, right? Why not? And then we can try again, and I'm going to show you two more things. One, now we become Adrian, same API, but if you notice is we also use a Docker image in here to actually simulate the Lambda runtime, and so we can execute our functions locally.
That's cool.
So that's why all the runtimes in there are possible.
So is now SAM the way of testing locally your applications and serverless applications? Is that the recommended way now?
Sure. So when you go to testing, we have to think that there's unit testing, there's functional testing, there's all of these pieces. Unit testing, that doesn't change. Whether you're using serverless applications or not, you should do the unit testing just like that. If you're trying to do something
and in fact, the boilerplates as unit testing, right?
Exactly. If you actually go over here, you will notice that there's nothing to do with SAM.
That's great.
You will see that we're actually going to use Chai and then Mocha in this case, and we're just going to simply import the Lambda handler and execute that, and pass a fake event in that case.
But for functional testing, then SAM local is great.
Absolutely, you can use SAM local to quickly emulate that and see if it's working. But then integration test, we definitely recommend you to bring a whole new stack for testing the real services, right?
So, Ettore, I remember a discussion we had in Seattle, and we started to hack around, especially you started to hack around the CLI and all that stuff. Can you tell us, I'm sure people on the Twitch channel might want to contribute, right? It's open source, everything is there. How can someone just start and contribute to the project?
Absolutely. Let's go back to the SAM CLI repo.
Yep.
And I will show you briefly how the code is structured, but for now, there's something you should know. One is called development guides, and one is called contributing. Okay. These are more than recommended files that you should read before trying to contribute. And also,
who does read the documentation?
Right? What could possibly go wrong?
Exactly.
No problem. So we also have a nice make file that will give you some guidelines on how, before you make a pull request to GitHub, we will test against some of our standards we have, right? So if you look at development guide, we will give you how to install different Python environments, blah, blah, blah. And on the contributing guide, we will give you more specifics. So how SAM CLI is working? Let's call init, for example, for now.
Do you want to show a little bit under the hood?
Yeah, that's right. Let's do it live, right? Why not?
Let's do it.
So if we actually open up the code on the left side, you see that we have, let me zoom in. You have SAM CLI over here, which is a Python package. And you see the CLI over here, which basically will import all the commands over here. So we have SAM deploy, SAM init, SAM local, and all these pieces. If I open up SAM init, command init, you will see that we actually are using a bunch of other libraries in here, and you will see the commands that we just did it. So location, output, and everything else, right? And then, but this is just a CLI. The underlying implementation actually lives under under local in here. It will be local. You see API gateway, the Docker implementation.
Docker, the events.
Exactly.
Cool.
So the template we just run is actually over here.
Okay, so it's using cookie cutter.
Yeah, use a cookie cutter. It's a very famous project in the Python community.
That's cool.
So it allows you to create your own templates if you want. And if you actually open up this one here, you will see that the code is actually normal Python. We import the cookie cutter in this case. Yeah. We verify that where to initialize those templates, and then we actually go from here. Everything using NumPy, doc strings to actually better documentation for developers. Okay. And yeah, it's actually just normal Python.
And what would you recommend someone who wants to contribute to start with? Like, what are the things that might need improvement, or actually not improvement, but additions?
Absolutely. So if you go to pull requests right now, you will see there's a bunch of people who are already contributing to that.
That's cool.
And you could see updates to README file. You could see some case insensitive. Even this, for instance. Let's have a look at
the
this.
header.
Let's have a look at this, how they implemented. So you could see that he was trying to add Amazon Trace ID into API Gateway headers, which we use Flask underneath. And you could see the files changed, or over here, right? You could see that they changed some CLI local where the library is, and then service.py, and also the tests over here. Yeah. So if we open up this file, let's have a look. You can see that from this file, all he actually did was just add a new header in here.
That's right.
And of course, make sure that we actually have testing in place, because we're going to be actually looking for this. It's a normal open source standards.
That's cool. And where is the CLI going to?
So the CLI, we're actually looking for feedback in every possible area you want. We actually love to hear from customers into what would be the next thing that would make your life easier into development? What can we possibly do to make your development cycle much faster? Is it a package model that might be different? Is it more templates? Yep. Is that perhaps showing you how to build your own templates?
Different templates? Huh? So actually, I'll take you on that one. So
that's the problem with things live, right?
We have Sam in it. Creates boilerplate templates and stuff like that. What if I want to use Sam, but I want to create my own template? How can I do that? Can we do this?
Absolutely, yeah, let's do it. So we kind of anticipated that question at some point. We knew some customers would ask that question. And if you actually do sam init -- help, you will see a very beautiful help command that gives you every possible way you can run init. So you can have your custom templates in a zip file, in a GitHub, Mercurial, or something. This is a custom template. It's actually, let's put it this way, it's a very advanced template that gives you almost all of the best practices we recommend customers now in a boilerplate already done for you.
Can we show that?
Let's give it a try.
Let's give it. Let's do it live.
So live is better, right? So if you do sam init -- location and where the template is, in this case, GH is actually GitHub. We could do HTTPS. And it was going to ask us a question. What's the project name? Agent?
No.
Okay, Python lovers.
Python. If Randall is listening to us, I'm sure he's going to be happy.
Okay. So the name of the project will call Python lover. Give some a description. Let's leave it this. Yeah. Question is, do you want to have API gateway?
Yeah, sure.
Do you want to have distributed tracing?
Absolutely. So what is X-ray? Just because
X-ray will give you distributed tracing capabilities.
Yeah, so when you're executing, it's an ID that is put on the header, and that we can trace.
Exactly. It's a service that will give you all the visibility into what your service is talking to, who is talking to, is it working, what is the distribution latency across.
That's right.
So we passed that, and the next question is, do you want to have canary releases, safe deployment?
Absolutely.
Right?
I'm all
into
it.
Right? So let's say yes.
And canary deployment is being able to have two environments, and when we switch traffic to one another, or we have kind of, for example, using a round robin with some weighted 1% of the traffic to go to one environment and 99% of the rest there, and then we can test new environments.
You know what? Let's show this.
Oh, wow.
So
let's do it.
Because we love makefiles, well, coming from C and coming from others.
I know you do.
I love it. So I'm going to say yes to experimental makefiles.
Yeah, let's do it.
And if you're a Python developer, you are going to love this now. So let's actually go to our Visual Studio Code. Let's ditch Node.js for now.
Yep.
And you see, Python lovers, we have actually a lot more stuff in here. Yep. You have pip file is the new recommendation for dealing with Python packages. Yep. You will see the normal README file, you are used to it. and a lot more other stuff. We're using PyTest now, and then if you now look at the SAM template, this is something closer to production. Remember when you talk about safe deployments?
Yes.
It's only these 3 lines. So these 3 lines, by default, when you make a deployment, what this will give to you is deploy a new version, send 10% of the traffic every 1 minute.
And increase that.
And increase that.
That's cool.
And I could do even better. I could say...
I would do every 10 minutes because I'm a freak, but...
I could even say, do every 10% every 1 minute, and look at my KPI alarm in CloudWatch, and perhaps look at also Lambda, errors, aggregated, alarm, and if any of these breaches, I want you to roll back automatically for me.
That's beautiful.
So this is how far you can go with creating your own blueprints and make sure everything works. And of course, because we knew that could happen, if you could be new to all this, every line in here that is a little bit more advanced, there's a link straight to where in the documentation we are using this and how you can extend even further.
That will make life for developers a lot easier, right? Both in terms of testing, which has been in the past not necessarily the easiest, and especially locally and then in the cloud, and also to actually being able to move from just hacking around to a production system, and this is great.
Absolutely. We actually heard from customers exactly this feedback, and this is our response to this, based on what the customers would like to see it, and actually how they could extend this in particular. So, and now, if you look at the Python experience using this advanced template, which is something you can also do for other runtimes, we can now just run this command, make, build the service where the source code is, and this will install all my Python packages, will actually clone everything I need, and have a folder ready to go for Lambda to be able to consume, both locally and for deployment.
That's cool.
And even better, if you have a Python dependency that requires cryptography or something that has C compiling, you can actually do almost the same thing and specify Docker equals to this, equals to 1, and we will actually launch a Docker container, store your dependencies in the target environment that Lambda will consume. So no more hassle on that sense.
That's great.
So once again, if you are interested in this, if I go over here to my SAM init --help, this is the location. So you can fork this, you can do anything you want, and you can see how you can create your own templates as well. Essentially, all you need to create your own template is a cookiecutter.json for now, and a folder where everything will be generated afterwards. So if you look at the cookiecutter.json, essentially is the questions we answer.
Exactly.
So a JSON key will be the question you want to prompt, and you can use that key and the answer, obviously, to do anything you want inside.
Okay, cool. So I see you are contributing as well to the project. You seem totally passionate about this. Share a passion about SAM. Why people should start using SAM, and why do you think it might be great for anyone to get started?
I like to categorize this answer in 2 ways. One is a personal, and I can say,
I want to hear the personal.
The personal is my own, which is I use both serverless. I use a bunch of frameworks in the past, serverless, Chalice, and everything else. I like those frameworks that are language agnostic, and I like those frameworks that I can reuse what I invested in the past. I invested in learning CloudFormation, so I can use other AWS services. And if I can use the power of CloudFormation, but in a simplified version, I can have both of the good works. So I can use SAM for Lambda and API Gateway and all the rest, while still being able to use my CloudFormation resources.
And there's also some work actually, because Chalice is a framework from AWS, right? And there's some work to align as well SAM with Chalice. Can you talk about this a little bit?
Absolutely, yeah. So if you use Chalice today, Chalice is a framework. Actually, let's bring this up.
Yep.
So Chalice actually is a framework for Python that will actually simplify the Python experience if you are used to Bottle or Flask.
Yeah,
right?
I'm a huge Flask developer.
So if you actually look at the code for Flask, it's very similar to any Flask kind of a framework out there. The difference is that Chalice will give you the local development, all the packaging stuff that you will normally have for some local. But Chalice recently, about a few months ago, if I'm not mistaken, has a command called SAM package, which will essentially get its Chalice project and we will export as a SAM template.
That's right.
So then you can use CI/CD with
So all
SAM.
the good stuff.
The good stuff,
that's
like
nice.
safe deployments and everything else.
So you actually can reuse the safe deployment from SAM with Chalice as well? no?
Absolutely, because
wow.
Chalice will export your project into a SAM template. Now you can do canary releases, all of this good stuff as well.
Oh, that's cool. So many things, right, to have a look. So if you are into serverless, clearly there's a lot of new things that have been released, SAM CLI, SAM init. Yesterday we talked about SAM
The SAM validate
SAM
as well.
validate,
Yeah.
which is a way to validate your template before
Yeah.
deployment and find indentation errors, which have been a
Always,
misery in the
always,
past.
always.
But clearly a lot of stuff. So it's awesome work for the team, and really looking forward to what's coming next.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if you want to show some more demos. We
Yeah.
still have a couple of minutes.
Yeah,
but,
one thing I want to make sure we call out for now, just in case we forget, if you go to the serverless application model GitHub repo, not only we have examples and a bunch of other stuff, if you go to the very bottom, we added a Slack channel that you can join us and we can talk almost on a daily basis.
That's
You
cool.
can see the whole team behind SAM CLI, the serverless folks, the developer advocates like Paul Johnston, the great Chris Muntz as well. All of these fantastic folks are actually there.
Paul, come on stage. Come and say hi. There's Paul here. Come on, man. Come on, show your face.
So join us on Slack, and you can see actually all of us in there.
Paul
So-
is shy. But anyway, thanks very much, Eto, for
problem.
coming on stage and talking about SAM. There's so much going on in serverless. Every day I wake up, there's new things, so I'm really
Absolutely.
looking for it.
Moving fast.
Thanks very much, Twitch, for the live, and hope to see you soon again.
Absolutely. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.